Welcome back to the AI Breakdown. Today we are talking about a new survey that is getting a lot of attention and which appears at first glance to suggest that Americans are extremely worried about AI. So this was first written up in Axios. The piece was called Exclusive Poll: Americans Distrust AI Giants. The piece kicks off, majorities of American voters from both parties are worried about AI risks and support federal regulation to control those risks, according to new polling by a new AI-focused think tank, the Artificial Intelligence Policy Institute, shared exclusively with Axios. And boy, there are some big banner numbers here. The first poll question that Axios shares is how U.S. adults say they feel about growth in artificial intelligence. Mostly excited, only 7% of respondents. Somewhat excited, 14%. Totally neutral, 16%. Somewhat concerned, 32%. And mostly concerned, 30%. Nearly a third that are mostly concerned and another third that are somewhat concerned. That was far from it when it comes to interesting numbers from this study, though. Here are some of the highlights according to the organization that sponsored the study. 72% of voters prefer slowing down the development of AI compared to just 8% who prefer speeding development up. 62% of voters are primarily concerned about artificial intelligence, while just 21% are primarily excited about it. 86% of voters believe AI could accidentally cause a catastrophic event, and 70% agree that mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other risks like pandemics and nuclear war. 82% of voters don't trust tech executives to regulate AI, while voters support a federal agency regulating AI by a more than 3-to-1 margin, including 2-to-1 among Republicans. 76% of voters believe artificial intelligence could eventually pose a threat to the existence of the human race, including 75% of Democrats and 78% of Republicans. Now, Daniel Colson, the executive director of this new Artificial Intelligence Policy Institute, wrote, "The data is clear. Americans are wary about the next stages of AI and want policymakers to step in to develop it responsibly. At a time when nearly every issue is polarized, there's a broad consensus among Americans that policymakers need to decide what path AI development should take." So before we discuss these poll results even further, let's talk about the organization that sponsored this survey. The AI Policy Institute's webpage says, translating public concern into policy. American voters are worried about risks from AI technology. The AI Policy Institute's mission is to channel public concern into effective regulation. We engage with policymakers, media, and the public to shape a future where AI is developed responsibly and transparently. Now, as you can see, the perspective of the AI Policy Institute is very clear. They are not a neutral institution and don't pretend to be. They are a body that exists because they are concerned about AI, because they believe that others are also concerned about AI, and because they want that to turn into actual effective regulation. Now, a little bit down their homepage, there is a section called Slow Deliberate Progress. That phrase, I think, from the little that I've read on this website, seems to sum up what the goal is here. In other words, it doesn't appear to me to be some neo-Luddite organization that doesn't want any advancement in artificial intelligence. Its concern appears to be around the financial incentive and the market competition around AI more than anything else. The AI frontier, they write, is being pushed forward rapidly by corporations pouring billions into training powerful AI models. The speed of this advancement has outpaced our understanding of these systems, leaving us in the dark about their capabilities, behavior, and the risks they pose. The AIPI points out that the leaders of all of the big labs have signed that letter saying that mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority. And they even hint at what they see as perhaps the most significant first moves that the government could make. They write, by regulating the data centers necessary for developing cutting-edge AI models, and by mandating the demonstration of an AI model's safety prior to its deployment, government has the opportunity to significantly mitigate approaching threats. So that's who this poll is coming from. Now, of course, it wasn't the AIPI who was out doing the polling. That was done by YouGov, who does tons and tons of polls across a million different topics, and are broadly speaking considered good at what they do, and not likely to nudge results in one direction, just to confirm the priors of whoever's sponsoring the survey they're doing. On the website, they shared a set of the actual questions, rather than just the summarized results. And the only one that felt at all leading to me was this one. Agree or disagree? Tech company executives can't be trusted to self-regulate the AI industry. That could have just as easily have been written agree or disagree. Tech company executives can be trusted to self-regulate the AI industry, but by putting the emphasis on the can't, it kind of nudges the respondent to be in the mindset of skeptical in the first place. Still, I share those things only so that you have an appropriate grain of salt and treat this survey for what it is, which is one data point. Now, broadly speaking, and you've probably heard me say this on the show before, I agree pretty wholeheartedly with the idea that, broadly speaking, Americans have a sense and have grokked the message of the AI safety folks. In fact, at some points, I talked about how I think that community needs to focus a little bit more on solutions, because there's sort of been this head-spinning shift where the issue went from off the radar entirely to something that people were really concerned about. Now, why might that be? What might explain why Americans are inclined to be nervous about this? I think there are a few aspects of it. One has to do with how not theoretical this is. And what I mean by that is that usually when you have a big technology hype cycle, it's a small cohort of early adopters who are really enfranchised in actually doing the thing in question. Not so with generative AI, where hundreds and hundreds of millions, if not billions of people have actually used these tools and do actually use these tools now day in and day out. The experience of going from not really thinking about AI at all, and maybe only having a sci-fi understanding of what that word or term even meant, and then having ChatGPT do your homework for you better than you can, or write those emails for work better than you can, or teach you about things that you want to learn about better than any other resource that you can find, is the sort of 0 to 1 moment that really makes people question everything they think they know about the world around them. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a priori good or bad, but what I think people got from those first experiences with ChatGPT was a sense of the significance of this change. No disrespect to NFTs or any other crypto thing, but it was unignorable for most people who actually use these tools in a way that most technology hype cycles that came before them just weren't. So that's factor one. To sum up, Americans were primed to think that this was a real and significant thing. Now, second, that came into the context of waning and frankly fast declining trust in big tech firms. If you go back and look at polls from the early teens, tech companies were still seen as the new kids on the block, much more trustworthy, for example, than big financial institutions. The global financial crisis was still fresh in people's minds, and these cute new social apps were still just fun, kind of insignificant things. Now, the more and more of our lives that have been consumed by those big tech platforms, the more and more trust has gone down. And frankly, people of different political persuasions have found lots of different reasons to dislike big tech equally, if oppositely. Brookings published a study summarizing longitudinal polls from American institutional confidence polls. They looked at the loss in confidence of different institutions between 2018 and 2021. Now, it's worth noting that in that period, institutions of all stripes lost confidence, which I think will resonate with many people's anecdotal or lived experience, but by a fairly significant margin. The institutions that lost the most confidence in that 3-year period included Facebook, Amazon, and Google. Just after that were colleges, which had lived through the admissions scandal, press, which was being completely barraged by the then sitting president, and after that, major companies, FBI, military, political parties, organized labor, organized religion, court, state government, nonprofits, local government, banks, executive branch, local police, and Congress. Somehow Congress had the lowest amount of loss in confidence, but my guess is that has more to do with how low its starting point was, rather than it just being more durable than these other institutions. In any case, the point is, ChatGPT and all of these generative AI tools happened at a time when we were primed to not trust big tech, to not trust the CEOs of Google and Microsoft, to stare squintily at Sam Altman and ask whether he's just another Sam. So you now have 1, the significance that comes from actually experiencing these tools, 2, the priming of the populace to dislike and distrust big tech, and then 3, for the last 3 months, we have had basically a never-ending barrage of mainstream media coverage of extinction risk. This was jump-started, of course, by Geoffrey Hinton leaving Google and going on his media tour about his concerns. But for a while there, every day there was another headline about the idea that AI might kill us all. So that's a third factor. A fourth and final factor is that people are concerned even if AI doesn't kill us all, it might take our jobs. Now, this perspective has gotten louder because of AI's central place in the Hollywood strikes happening right now, but it's also just a perpetuation and an amplification of a trend in some cases of automation taking away jobs that has been happening for decades, combined with the fact that this is the first time that white-collar jobs have been threatened, and you have this really palpable stew of reasons why people are going to be scared, why they have reasons to mistrust big tech, and why they understand that whatever happens, something big is going to happen. The question really comes down to, what is Congress going to do with this broad bipartisan support? What type of rules and regulations are actually going to make sense and serve to address these concerns, while also not just reactionarily, shutting down a field of technological innovation that could also come with huge benefits. I will say my general bias is to not be super optimistic about Congress's ability to get that right, but I will also say that there seems to be some pretty serious good faith efforts to get up to speed very quickly that could really bear fruit. The most hopeful thing might be that the fact that this is such a clear popular issue among Americans gives representatives of both parties the cloud cover to actually try to get it right. Is that being too optimistic? We will just have to wait and see. But anyways, that is the story with this poll that you are likely hearing about right now. If you haven't yet seen them, go to theaipi.org. Check out this new organization, see if you think it's interesting, or if what they have to say makes you skeptical. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions, and then come back and let's chat about it. That's going to do it for today's AI Breakdown. Thanks as always for listening or watching, and until next time, peace.